I'm going to present two ways to simplify a radical. The first way involves using a factoring tree, and the second way, which I prefer and I'll do in class, is factoring first and simplifying. Okay, the tree you may have done before. I'll do the full example though. We want to factor 128 into two numbers that multiply to get us back to 128. I'll do 2 and 64. Doesn't really matter which two numbers you pick, but 2 seems to be the most basic number, so we'll do 2. And then 64 we can factor into 2 times 32. 32 we can factor into 2 times 16. 16 we can factor into 2 times 8. 8, 2 times 4, and then 4, 2 times 2. Okay, now we want to locate, after all of the ends of our branches, pairs of numbers. Okay, that's important because pairs of numbers are numbers that we can extract outside of the square root sign. Okay, so we have 2 2's, another 2 2's, and then I find a final pair of 2's. That's 3 pairs of 2's. And then left over, we have this lone 2. So of those 3 pairs of 2's, a pair means that we can bring that number outside of the square root sign, or the radical sign. So I did that. Since I have 1, 2, 3 pairs of 2's, I have 1, 2, 3 2's. Then, my final 2, which I circled in blue, cannot be extracted or taken outside of the radical sign. So I'm going to leave it under the square root sign. Okay? And then we would multiply all of those 2's together. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And finally, we still have that root 2 because you can't do the square root of 2, so it just stays 2. And that is our final answer. That 8 root 2 is nothing more than a simplified version of this 128, the square root of 128. They actually have the exact same value. It's just simpler to look at to mathematicians. That's why we do it. That is a simpler version. Even though if you put both of them into your calculator, they will have the same decimal value. Okay, so that is way 1, using the tree. Way 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor 128 into 2 numbers, 2 square roots, but I want one of them to be the biggest perfect square I can find. So for instance, you would not want to do, let's say, 16 times, I guess that would be 16 times 8. We don't want that. That's not good, because 16 is too small. If you can find a square root that is the biggest, that's the best. Now what? We can do the square root of 64. We know how to do that. The square root of 64 is 8. This number here, you can't do the square root of 2, so we're going to keep it as the square root of 2. And we're done. That's the same exact answer as we just got over here, 8 root 2, 8 root 2. But this method involves us finding 2 numbers that are factors of the original, but one of them is the biggest, and that's very important, the biggest perfect square that we can find. Remember, a perfect square is a number that we can take the square root of. And then we take its square root. And that's it. Okay, we will do more examples of this.